to the Ideal Woman, an SID Women Ministries Department program. I'm your presenter, Dr. Edward Edimoyo. Today we are going to look at a very interesting topic, and the topic is widowed and yet an ideal woman. Widowed and yet an ideal woman. Right now we'll go to the book of Ruth, chapter 3, verse 11. The book of Ruth, chapter 3, verse 11. Ruth chapter 3, verse 11. And the Bible reads, "And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask. For my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman." Other versions, they say that actually for all the people know that you are a noble or excellent woman. We have many beautiful pictures of women in the Bible. Inspired women have conveyed to us some parts of the biblical teaching. It is the gift of women to see into truth with a flash of sympathy. From Ruth's story, it seems there is no condition of gentleness, no condition of obscurity, no condition of poverty, no condition of sorrow, which should prevent anyone from becoming an ideal woman. In other words, the question is, if Ruth can be counted among the ideal women, then each one of you viewers that are watching, ladies over there, you can become one also. The Hebrew Bible calls an ideal woman a shet child, meaning a virtuous woman, a wife of noble character, a woman of worth, a woman of excellence, a fine woman, a worthy woman, or a capable woman. There are a number of nuances actually that we can come up with to try and explain the original word for this noble woman. In Hebrew, the adjective fine or noble implies ability. It implies efficiency. It implies moral worth. All these qualities can be found in any woman by the grace of God. Friends, these all express the opposite of the loose woman. The original word being used there, Zara, used in parallel with Nokria, which is an adulterous woman. This phraseology only appears 3 times in the Old Testament. I mean, the phraseology of a noble woman only appears 3 times in our Bible. And all the 3 verses in which it appears are going to be the focus of our study, in addition to what we looked at last week. Note the reputation of this foreign girl who, under ordinary circumstances, would have been an outcast in Bethlehem, an outcast because the Mosaic law shut out a Moabite. She had been told that a Moabite and an Ammonite could not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Yes, she had been coached by Naomi before they came to Bethlehem that there would be no possibility of her ever getting married. And Ruth had accepted her status. So even as a single woman, she had accepted this status, and yet, as we shall see as we go on, she became a noble woman. Yes, friends, the town gossips may have looked her over very carefully at the beginning. We do not know what they had to say about her, but maybe they said, this is certainly a pretty girl who has come back with Naomi. Certainly, she will be trying to get some of our young men. But she made no such attempt. Instead, she developed this wonderful reputation in the town of Bethlehem. Today we find that as soon as a person is noticed to be a widow, many people look down upon that person. They have a certain reputation about them. This could have been worse even in the times of Naomi and Ruth. And yet we see her developing a good reputation to a point where she's being called a noble woman. Yes, friends. In fact, Boaz declares himself flattered that Ruth had chosen him as her husband, her protector, rather than any of the many men her own age. Boaz was an old man by this time. So with Ruth proposing to Boaz, it was not something like maybe she got attracted to him, but she was just fulfilling her duty. She was just going to him so that he could fulfill his duty as the kinsman redeemer. Boaz goes on promising to do all that Ruth had asked, because everyone in town knows that she is a woman of substance. Friends, Ruth had arrived in Bethlehem a few short weeks ago as a destitute widow. She had arrived as a foreigner at the mercy of the local people. This is in fact how she perceived herself. With this phrase, woman of substance, Boaz describes Ruth just as the narrator had described him in chapter 2, verse 1. At least in terms of character, even if not economics, Boaz acknowledges Ruth as his equal. In Ruth chapter 2, verse 1, Boaz is described as a noble man, a noble man. And this term comes to him because he is rich and is a man of good reputation. But the same title now is used by Boaz in relation to this widow who had come back from Moab. Ruth asks Boaz to assume his role as family redeemer. We do not know what all that means. Maybe it meant marriage, maybe it meant protection, maybe it meant the issue of an heir. However broad the request, Boaz agrees to do all that Ruth seeks. The dangerous and delicate plan of the two women, that is Naomi and Ruth, seems to have succeeded this far. When put to the test, Boaz, a man of substance, proves his character as a noble man. Boaz gives the testimonial that she enjoys the best reputation in the gate of his people, and he promises, therefore, to comply with her request. Everyone in town, literally all the gate of my people. This is an unusual expression which, strangely enough, occurs in a literal sense in two poetic passages, that is in the book of Micah, chapter 1, verse 9, and Obadiah, chapter 11, so chapter 13, verse 11, referring to Jerusalem itself, the city of God. It seems clear that the word gate is used here metaphorically, although some have taken it in a literal sense, rendering something like all the people of the gate. Some scholars understand the phrase to mean the public opinion of Bethlehem, the gate to be used for city by Synecdoche, here with particular reference to the gate as the place of business and gossip. In other words, as Boaz is speaking to Ruth, he reports to her that actually the gossip in town, the gossip that is going on in town about you, is that of a good report. They are saying you are a noble person. Yes, friends, since the gate is the place where legal and business transactions were carried on, others argue that the phrase carries the connotation of the legally responsible body of the town. It almost seems like the body, the supreme body in the city of Bethlehem sat down to take a vote on Ruth, to judge her character, and at the end of the meeting, they concluded that she was a woman of good reputation. In a similar vein, others appeal to similar meanings of the Akkadian Baptu, which means gate, and translates gate here as assembly or community. The gate is mentioned here as the center of the social life of the community. Some such translation seems close to the meaning here, and so it can be rendered all the assembly, literally gate, all of my people as everyone in the city. In other words, Ruth as a widow, Ruth as a foreigner, Ruth as a young man, was actually under the screen of all the people in the city of Jerusalem. Everyone was watching her. Whatever the exact nuance of the expression, the sense is clear. It was a matter of common knowledge. A young widow, a foreigner, poor woman was indeed subject of gossip in Bethlehem. A woman of wealth, they conclude. After scrutinizing her, everyone agrees that indeed this widow, this young woman, is a woman of wealth. The phrase here rather clearly stresses the quality of Ruth's person. The virtues of the woman of wealth extolled in Proverbs 31:10-31 are her faithfulness to her social, religious, and family responsibility. Just such responsibilities Ruth has carried out relative to Naomi. As most commentators have noted, Boaz's description of Ruth here matches precisely the narrator's identification of Boaz in chapter 2 verse 1, as we have mentioned already. In verse 4, Naomi had advised Ruth that she should do everything that Boaz would tell her to do, assuming that he would respond favorably and that she was under his authority. Ruth does not argue with that. She acknowledges this social order in verse 9. She is Boaz's servant, but then proceeds immediately to subvert it by lecturing him on his obligations. Now Boaz declares that he is the servant of Ruth, the destitute Moabite widow. Friends, the Bible is very clear. Ladies over there, the Bible says, humble yourself, and in due season, God will lift you up. And this is what we see happening in Ruth. But Boaz has his rationale for submitting to Ruth. All the citizens of Bethlehem know that she is indeed a noble woman. In his reference to the citizens, Boaz employs a special idiom. All my people at the gate know that you are a noble woman. This expression translates literally all the gate of my people, but it means all of my people who gather at the gate, that is, the full citizens of the town. The formal construction of his statement, you are a woman of noble character, suggests Boaz may be reporting the consensus of the court. By quoting it, Boaz elevates Ruth to the same status the narrator had described to him in chapter 2, verse 1. In other words, there's no difference between Boaz, this rich man, this noble man, and Ruth, the widow, a young woman. The phrase Eshet Chai, woman of wealth, or woman of strength, occurs elsewhere in Proverbs 12:4 and 31 verse 10. But what an amazing turn of events the declaration signifies. She was the lowest of the low, with no recourse but to scavenge in the fields behind the servants of the landowners. But because of her devotion to her mother-in-law and her willingness to abandon all for her, the townspeople knew her true character. But she did not gain this reputation by trying to be somebody else or by associating with the important people in the society, not even by trying to be a man. On the contrary, it was her self-effacing embodiment of Israel's lofty covenant standards, her chesed, her kindness, her loyalty to the family of her deceased husband, especially her mother-in-law, that has won her the praise of all. Because Boaz could have treated her as Moabite trash, scavenging in the garbage cans of Israel, and then corrupting the people with her whorish behavior, but with true casade of his own, he sees her as a woman equal in status and character to himself. Woman of excellence, the term covers virtue, ability, efficiency. Her story thus serves as a balance and corrective to any cultural assumption that only married women are truly worthy. From the story of Ruth, we can see that a woman at any level of development, at any level of the circumstances in which they pass through in this life, can be considered a woman of worth. A working woman can be considered a woman of worth. A housewife can be considered a woman of worth. A woman doing business can be considered a woman of worth. Yes, friends, you can be single, you can be divorced, you can be widowed, you can be poor and still be considered a noble woman. For Ruth, Chai referred to her loyalty to her mother-in-law, her hard work in the harvest field, her virtue, rather than to the female ability to produce children, as the term Chai has been translated in chapter 4, verse 11. The ideal for an adult woman, friends, is marriage. But through the grace of God, a single independent woman, a divorced woman, a widow, all these people, whatever category one may find herself in, you can still be considered an ideal woman if you get connected to Jesus Christ. It is bye for now. See you next week. Again, as we shall be looking at yet another interesting topic, an ideal woman, a crown to her husband. God bless you.